Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Rice University for a debate between Dr. James Tour and Mr. Dave Farina. The topic, are we clueless about the origin of life? My name is Alex Latham, and I am a graduate student affiliated with the Tour Research Group. I will be serving tonight as a timekeeper for the debate. Some quick logistics before we get started. In case of emergency, there are 3 exits in this room to either side of me and 1 in the back. Please only use the exit here to either side of me in case of an emergency. If you need to use the restroom during the debate and you are able to use the stairs, please exit through the back door so as not to disrupt the stage. The restrooms are located in the main building just around this way, down into the door right on the side of this building. You go in, take a right, and you'll see the restrooms very soon. In order to limit disruptions, we ask that you please silence your cell phones and mobile devices. We also ask that you please not distract anybody up front with any kind of photography, videography, flash photography especially. This event is being live streamed, and the video will be available for free after the event as well, so there really shouldn't be any need for pictures or videos. We also ask that unless you need to step out, that you do not stand up, because that would be pretty distracting as well for the live stream. We would like to thank Rice Events and those helping with the live stream and sound for making this event possible tonight. We would also like to give a special thank you to Mr. Farina for being here and giving his time this evening, being willing to visit Rice University for this debate. Now, the moderator for tonight's debate will be Professor Wayne Guida. He is a professor in the Department of Chemistry at the University of South Florida in Tampa, and a collaborating member in the Molecular Medicine program at the H. Lee Moffitt Cancer Center and Research Institute at the University of South Florida. Professor Guida has also served as president and CEO of Schrödinger Incorporated. He was the executive director of chemical technologies at the Novartis Institute for Biomedical Research, formerly known as Ciba-Geigy Pharmaceuticals. There, he supervised a group of scientists engaged in molecular modeling, protein X-ray crystallography, protein NMR spectroscopy, protein biochemistry, high-throughput screening, analytical chemistry, and organic synthesis scale-up. Professor Guida's current research interest involves the design of STING modulators, that stands for Stimulator of Interferon Genes, for the treatment of cancer, autoimmune disease, and anti-infectives. Please join me in welcoming the moderator, Professor Wayne Guida.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Alex, for the introduction. It's a real pleasure to be here tonight. I'm glad that Dr. Tour asked me to do this. We have an amazingly good audience here. I think just about every seat is filled. So first, let's just start off by welcoming to the stage Dr. James Tour and Mr. Dave Farina. Okay, so both of you make sure you're at your neutral corners. To my left corner of the ring, weighing in at, no, I'm not going to do that. To my right is Mr. Dave Farina. He's a scientific communicator who hosts the YouTube channel Professor Dave Explains. To my left is none other than Dr. James Tour, who is the T.T. and W.F. Chow Professor of Chemistry right here at Rice University. Okay, give me a moment, if you will, to describe the ground rules. So the way this is going to work is Dr. Tour will have the first 10 minutes to make an opening statement. Then Mr. Farina will have another 10 minutes to make an opening statement. After that, Dr. Tour will take 2 minutes to ask a question of Mr. Farina. Mr. Farina will have 5 minutes to answer that question, and a dialogue is permitted during the answering of the questions. After that, Mr. Farina will have 2 minutes to ask Dr. Tour a question, and Dr. Tour 5 minutes to reply. And this will go back and forth like that till 8:30. We will make sure Alex and I, that they stick to the time. But my role is beyond just that of a passive moderator. I mentioned the timekeeping, but in addition, if I hear during the debate something that, in my opinion, is not correct chemically, I will render my opinion. But I'll wait. I won't interrupt either of the debaters. I'll wait until there's a pause. Then what will happen at 8:30 is we will end that part of the debate, and we'll go into a question and answer session where members of the audience can ask questions, and I'll explain exactly how that works when we get to the 8:30 time point. So once again, let's welcome the two debaters.
Thank you. Before we get started, I want to do something. I've got a gift for Mr. Farina. Now, I was thinking, what could I get such an amazing person? And I've got you something that I am sure you do not have. This is something called laser-induced graphene. It was a process we developed in 2013 where a laser can hit any surface that's made out of carbon, and in this case, it's paper. And the laser can write a pattern. So what you're going to look at is paper that has been converted into carbon. The carbohydrates have been converted into graphene through the laser action. And so here's what we've got for you.
Oh, that's very lovely. It's a nice gesture, thank you. Is this on? Check two? Thanks very much, James.
So I have 10 minutes for an opening statement. Mr. Farina, as my guest, welcome to Rice University. Unlike Mr. Farina, I have never been in a debate before. So if it appears that I am not a skilled debater, it's an accurate assessment. A major hurdle for the origin of life research is the origin and persistence of enantiopure molecules. The building blocks of the building blocks, as I call them. Enantiopurity means that one mirror image of a molecule prevails to the exclusion of the other. This includes 19 of the 20 amino acids, the monomeric sugars, the nucleotides, and the lipids. But for the sake of getting through, I am conceding tonight to my opponent all those small molecules in 100% enantiomeric purity. They are yours. I concede them to you for the sake of time. So let's address other issues tonight, since my concession has been granted and there's still much more ground to cover. I am here defining clueless. Oh, this has gone off. All right. Hold the time a second for me while I log back in here. Okay, they had to have me use this one because of the way the feeds are working. So when this logs back in. Okay, but I'll continue now, in any case. I'm here defining clueless in the context of my typical usage. Let me open up this document. Got to do it. I mean, this is just life, you know. I teach in this room, so I'm used to this. This just happens. Okay. So I'm defining clueless in the context of my typical usage. We cannot solve any of the 5 criteria needed to make a living cell. None of these can be solved. Mr. Farina has complained that I am a religious man. I'm not just religious, I'm deeply religious. Or as he puts it, I'm a, quote, super Jesus guy, unquote. While that's a label that I gladly embrace, and I believe that the Bible is God's word, I never appeal to that book of authority in my academic lectures or scientific discussions. Never, unless specifically asked about my religious convictions, like in a church or a religious podcast, I never couple those to my scientific criticisms of origin of life research. I will not appeal to the Bible, to God, to miracles, to Jesus, to God of the gaps tonight. Often, origin of life researchers have a time of the gaps appeal, where they will say something to the effect, over millions of years, such and such happened. Those bedtime stories that are devoid of any precise chemistry may as well start with once upon a time. So I hope that my opponent will likewise not appeal to ill-defined time of the gaps arguments, and that he'll stay strictly on the scientific data, the data. As for me, I will stick to the data. The topic tonight is not about me, it's whether there is a valid hypothesis to make a living cell on a mindless early Earth. In discussing scientific data, it's not a matter of deception or lies. It is a matter of data interpretation. That happens all the time in science. It's hard to interpret the scientific literature data. And as I do with my graduate students, we learn from each other. They from me and I from them. I plan to address Mr. Farina as I would a graduate student seeking to learn from him tonight. The textbook definition for the characteristics of life is responsiveness to the environment, growth and change, ability to reproduce, having metabolism and breathe, maintaining homeostasis, and being made of cells and passing traits onto offspring. A valid hypothesis is one in which there is experimental evidence substantiating the proposed science. An invalid hypothesis is one in which there is no way to substantiate the proposed science. For example, my guest arrived to Houston from Los Angeles. A valid hypothesis would be that he flew to Houston on a commercial aircraft. That is a valid hypothesis because we can experimentally test the efficacy of commercial air travel. An invalid hypothesis would be that he drove here in a single molecule nanocar. Though that statement might be true, it is an invalid hypothesis since we have no experimental evidence for its validity. Nobody was present at life's origin, so we will never really know how life originated. But that's not what we're seeking to answer tonight. What we are seeking is an experimentally valid, verifiable hypothesis as to how life might have originated on an early Earth. We must see the origin of life research data, not their unsubstantiated claims, even if those claims are written in their research papers. Mr. Farina, please show us their data. Show their data. My contention remains the same. One day I presume that we will have a valid hypothesis upon which life might have originated, but as of today, we do not. And with each passing year, the cellular target that we must disclose becomes harder to reach due to the increased realization of its minimal complexity. A study in the Journal of Pragmatics in 2021 considered the trend of hyperbole in scientific publications. The authors, Hyland and Jiang, wrote, quote, "We trace the use of 400 hyping words which seek to promote, embellish, or exaggerate aspects of research papers. Our results show a massive increase in these items, and increases are most marked in the hard sciences," unquote. So while overblown statements are occurring in all fields, origin of life takes the cake. My opponent's favorite expert, Professor Lee Cronin, said in 2011 that he'd probably create life in his lab in 2 years. He did not. Another, whom he often cites, Professor Jack Szostak, then at Harvard, now at the University of Chicago, said in 2014 that he'd create life in his lab in 3 to 5 years. He did not. Professor Dimitar Seselov from Harvard University said in 2014 that life would be created in the lab in 5 years. It did not happen, not even close. Prebiotically relevant means that we are restricted to materials, procedures, and conditions that might have been available on an early Earth. These are the 5 criteria. These are the 5 criteria that have to be experimentally addressed in a prebiotically relevant manner in order to have a valid hypothesis for life's origin. We only have time for 5 tonight. Polypeptides, polynucleotides, polysaccharides, the origin of specified information, and the assembly of the above components into an integrated, functional, living system, namely a cell, not merely a random mixture of these. If my opponent is unable to supply all 5 criteria for life, then we're currently clueless on the origin of life. But since I don't think he'll be able to supply even one of the 5, it will show that we're not merely clueless, but utterly clueless. While some would like to portray me as one of the very few people that does not accept the hyped claims of origin of life researchers, I maintain that overconfident supporters of origin of life, like my opponent, are being abandoned by the origin of life research community itself. For example, Mr. Farina's own experts whom he likes to cite are now backing away from their own overblown claims. His often cited origin of life expert, Professor Jack Sostek, now says that aside from nature's construct of RNA, invoking of, quote, autocatalytic sets was never chemically realistic, unquote. Hence, the prebiotic relevance of autocatalytic sets crumbles. It's over, according to Professor Sostek. His often cited origin of life expert, Professor Donna Blackman, now acknowledges that there are no known prebiotically relevant autocatalytic reactions that greatly enhance chirality of a substrate. The increases are minor, so no need to waste our time tonight on autocatalysis. His own origin of life expert, Professor Stephen Benner, an enormous figure in this field, now says that any group of randomly synthesized RNA molecules would afford, quote, 10 million or 100 million more molecules that catalyze the destruction of RNA, unquote, than catalyze the copying of themselves. And, quote, this will never give you life, unquote. Hence, the relevance of random RNA to make copies of itself bites the dust. It's over, according to Professor Benner himself. Origin of life expert Professor James Shapiro now writes, certain questions like the origins of the first living cells currently have no credible scientific answers, unquote. Evolution kingpin, Professor Richard Dawkins now says, quote, we know little more than Darwin did about how it got started in the first place. We have no evidence bearing upon the momentous event that was the start of evolution on this planet, unquote. My opponent's favorite origin of life expert, Professor Lee Cronin, now writes and says on multiple occasions that, quote, origin of life research is a scam, unquote. And, quote, there are lots of layers to the scam, unquote. A scam means a dishonest scheme or a fraud. It's beautiful. It's as if Professor Lee Cronin has been scientifically born again. Mr. Farina, I respect your courage to be here tonight. It's too bad that origin of life researchers are not here themselves to defend their own data. Maybe they know the shallowness of their own research, while the less informed cannot assess the shallowness. I'm looking forward to seeing the data with chemical specificity. That's what I will be asking of you, so I'm telling you up front. Not the overblown titles, not their outlandish claims, not the once upon a time over 1 million years stories, but the data to propose a valid hypothesis to the 5 criteria needed to build a living cell, thereby overcoming our cluelessness on origin of life. Thank you.
Mr. Farina, your opening statement, please.
Straighten up. Hey, everyone. Thanks to Rice University for having us here tonight. We are here because of James Tour. James is a chemist and also an apologist who lies about origin of life research on the internet. It's quite the double life. In order to understand why he does this, we turn to his faith. James has admitted publicly that he is a creationist. He believes that God created life due to religious scripture, which to him takes priority over scientific evidence. From his website, faith and belief go beyond scientific evidence for this scientist. Anyone who thinks this is not relevant to the discussion is delusional, as James is openly admitting that there's no science that could ever be done that will convince him that life was not directly created by God. He is ideologically bound to denying abiogenesis. He sometimes pretends to leave room for it, as he did just now, to seem open-minded, but he isn't. He's totally dogmatic. Therefore, his opinions on origin of life research are irrelevant, as he is approaching the field not as a scientist, but as a preacher. Of course, James pretends his rhetoric is scientific. He will bring up his H-index and list of publications. Less important is the fact that he has publicly admitted that his students do all the work and he slaps his name on the papers. More important is the fact that none of his research has anything to do with origin of life whatsoever and does not qualify him in this topic, which is not strictly synthetic organic chemistry as he claims, but also astronomy, geology, physics, and lots of other areas James is clueless about. When it comes to this topic, James is a YouTuber. His embarrassing commentary takes place exclusively on YouTube or in-person events for science-illiterate Christians who share his biases and delusions. James knows that science is done through the primary scientific literature, and he knows that his inability to publish anything on this topic makes him completely irrelevant. That's why he regularly lies and pretends that he is published in this area, and his papers are ignored because of conspiracy. These papers are actually blog posts in Inference Review, launched by Discovery Institute propagandist David Berlinski, which is not peer-reviewed and exists for the sole purpose of making pseudoscience appear more legitimate. Jim's clueless ramblings do not even remotely resemble primary scientific literature, but he lists them among his actual science on his website anyway. Of course, when facing this topic, James somehow forgets what primary literature is supposed to look like. That's how he initially got into hot water, slandering Nobel laureate Jack Szostak. James was complaining about the prestigious journal Nature and what Szostak allegedly published in it, and how it doesn't meet the typical standards of the journal. He called Jack a liar multiple times, to the delight of his clueless, cackling audience. In actuality, it wasn't primary literature at all, but a web article meant for lay people, and there were no lies or inaccuracies, as James continues to claim to this day. His profoundly unprofessional and defamatory behavior has only gotten worse, as he now regularly attacks prominent researchers in this field or blatantly misquotes and misrepresents them. And that's why we're here, to highlight Jim's fraudulence. There is nothing to debate. The question as to whether we are clueless about the origin of life is idiotic. We aren't. Apologists like James train viewers to regurgitate the ridiculous lie that there's been no progress since the Miller-Urey experiment of the 1950s. In reality, we have multiple viable prebiotic synthetic pathways to all the relevant biomolecules and their polymers, and systems chemistry is showing us how sets of these molecules can have evolved over millions of years to produce the first protocell, which we will discuss later. James knows essentially nothing about any of it, but pretends to for his viewers who take him on blind faith, something they are quite comfortable doing. So we will get to James fumbling the science in a moment, but first it is important to establish that James is a brazen liar and charlatan in ways that everyone can understand without knowing anything about science. For example, part of Jim's script is to complain about the primordial soup model. He describes this as lightning striking some water and molecules form a slithering creature that crawls out. This is the dumbest straw man in history. Yet he insists that all these textbooks say precisely this, and it is taught to undergraduates as well as graduate students. In actuality, the textbooks look like this. They contain summaries of much of the research we will discuss momentarily: syntheses of biomolecules, ribozymes, autocatalysis, and other complex concepts. So he's just lying. He's trying to make science he doesn't like seem infantile and stupid. Another way he downplays the validity of the field is to pretend that almost no one is working in it. He claims it's a boutique field with no more than a dozen teams examining the problem. That's a lie. There are thousands of scientists working on this all over the world. He needs to lie about this because it's much more difficult to claim that thousands of scientists are all either corrupt or stupid, while only James knows the truth. A dozen is much easier to swallow, so he lies. He also pretends to be well-read in the subject. He isn't. He has admitted that he's read less than 5% of the literature on the topic, although in reality, over 3 million papers have been published since 2016, so he's read maybe 0.001% of the literature. More importantly, for the few papers he has read, the diligence he projects is a facade. As to anyone knowledgeable, he reveals a level of incompetence that is shocking for someone of his stature. Take, for example, this study by Stephen Benner, a researcher James regularly slanders. Here, Benner was showing nucleotide polymerization over basaltic glass to form RNA. James notes that Benner washes the glass thoroughly with hydrogen peroxide and ultra-pure water, and then throws his hands in the air about how this makes the study not prebiotically relevant, because he is washing away trace magnesium that would impede nucleotide polymerization on the early Earth. In his profound ignorance, James neglects to realize that basaltic rock is specifically rich in magnesium, information that anyone who had taken Geology 101 would know. Furthermore, he wonders where, oh where, could one find hydrogen peroxide and ultra-pure water on the early Earth, as though its use makes the study not prebiotically relevant. In reality, these are used to destroy biological material like bacteria that would contaminate the results. So, in fact, the washes are done specifically to make the experiment prebiotically relevant. This example is crucial because James will focus much of his empty criticism on claiming that research is not sufficiently prebiotic. But remember this example where James was so clueless that he does not even understand what the researchers are doing and why. This is his primary tactic. He skims the supplemental section of a paper, invents a technical flaw out of thin air, and pretends it negates the results of the paper, and by extension, origin of life research in general. But it gets much worse. James regularly botches concepts not just in geology, but also in his own field. For an example, we return to Benner's research where he synthesized ribose in prebiotically relevant fashion. James doesn't like it one bit, and when confronted with a 13C NMR spectrum demonstrating the presence of ribose, he not only pretends the data is invalid, but he goes to town with meme after meme, cartoon after cartoon, childishly mocking Benner for his garbage data. Here's this laughing Spanish guy meme where the whole crowd laughs in unison at the idiot Benner who thinks he got ribose when it's actually a mess of a billion compounds. But the joke is on James, as his pathetic commentary reveals that he can't even read a 13C NMR spectrum, something he should have learned as an undergrad. James compares the spectrum to that of pure ribose when the sample is ribose borate, a different compound, with broad peaks due to rapidly interconverting forms. The billions of compounds are actually just noise, as the vertical axis is expanded to highlight the wider peaks. This abject failure has been confirmed by every chemist I've corresponded with, from Benner himself to J. William Suggs, Professor Emeritus of Chemistry at Brown University, and many others. The idea that James can't do something that an undergrad could do is astounding, and whether his brain ceases to function when examining this research, or he is deliberately lying to a gullible audience with no clue what he's talking about, his credibility is reduced to zero with this example alone. So that's a brief summary of James Tour. He's a toxic individual and pathological liar who actively promotes science denial and slanders diligent researchers. Or in my case, he scours the internet for clips of me in music videos to commit character assassinations. Or unleashes a barrage of insults about how Dave doesn't know chemistry, even though most of his students use my organic chemistry tutorials to get through his unbearable course. He baselessly shouts hype when his own research is full of hype. He whines about being accused of believing in the God of the gaps when he objectively does. He publicly calls for the halting of an entire field of science he doesn't understand just to shelter his fragile, archaic faith. But today, finally, with no desk to hide behind, every tactic will be elucidated in real time, and he will be made accountable for his lies for everyone to see. I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I will.
We now turn to Dr. Tour, who will ask a question.
One of the things that we have to make in order to have life are polypeptides, where we take amino acids and these amino acids have to couple. And when they couple, it will form a dipeptide. This dipeptide is one of thousands and thousands and thousands that would have to form. If you were going to make a polypeptide, you'd need at least 100 of these for a very small polypeptide. Mr. Farina, show me the prebiotic chemistry that would do this coupling. Be my guest.
Okay. Yeah, I don't need the board. So this was my second prompt, so I guess we'll circle back to this, but yeah, you keep going, show me the references in your content, but so you're missing a mountain of research, literally a mountain of research that demonstrates this. So here's one, condensation of amino acids to form peptides in aqueous solution. So we've got sulfur-4, oxidative monool. Carbonyl sulfide mediated prebiotic formation of peptides. There's another one.
That does not do it, and the two you showed do not do it. This is called asparagine, DK. They do not do it with these.
Okay, so what is Lehman's a fraud? Gadiri's a fraud? Are you calling them fraud? They published a paper, carbonyl sulfide mediated prebiotic formation of peptides. So if you're saying they didn't do that, you're
show me the example in there. I studied this. I looked over every paper you put up.
You have never studied anything in this area. Are you kidding me? All you do is go, show me the papers, and then I show you papers. Here, let's see if I can find that one exactly.
Yeah, show me the one exactly that does this in a prebiotic fashion. Show me. It's not there.
Okay.
I'm asking you to come up and show me the chemistry.
James, I don't need to write on the board. I brought actual papers. This is actual research.
Okay, show me the
Here you
paper.
go.
Show
Here you
me
go.
in that paper this example.
Okay,
This is
look
called.
at- this is the one you wanted, James.
Aspartic acid.
James.
This is called lysine.
James, look. This is the Gadiri paper. Here's the scheme. You want to go through that?
But
Aqueous, room temperature, you get oligopeptides. Okay, and it jumps to 80% yield with prebiotic oxidizing agents
but
like
not
potassium
with this,
ferricyanide.
because what
What do you mean not
happens
with it?
is this would participate. This would
Oh,
participate.
you want to do the side chain thing. Okay, well, we've got research for that too.
Of course, I'm speaking to the side chain. This is not
There you go.
glycine. That's not
Regioselective.
prebiotically relevant.
What do you
That
mean
has
it's not
nothing to
prebiotically
do with
relevant?
prebiotic.
Okay, how about this one?
That sulfur compound was made separately in dichloromethane using HOBT, which is a coupling agent designed by human beings for solid phase synthesis. That's how they made the
Are you saying
thiol.
sulfur is not available prebiotically? It doesn't matter what solvent they use.
No, HOBT was the compound, that SH compound that you just showed was made in a separate reaction. That was in a separate reaction, and he describes that.
Okay.
I can show you in the paper.
Thank you. If you don't like that one, how about this Powner one? Powner jacks regioselective peptide formation. Acylated aminonitrile.
Right.
Wait, hold on. I got the scheme here.
It's not in there. You're going to look and look. It's not in there. I studied every one of your papers. Powner doesn't even use amino acids. He uses an
aminonitrile.
aminonitrile.
That's a totally
that is
different
not
paper.
an amino acid.
James, that's not the same paper. You're
No,
talking about a different paper.
there is no coupling.
Look, he got coupling with lysine, regioselective lysine ligation, the most selective peptide ligation that tolerates all proteinogenic side chains.
But
he did this
does not
with
do
all side
an
chains.
amino acid coupling. He's got
What are you talking about? Prebiotic catalytic peptide ligation.
There's no amino acids there.
Yes, it's amino acids.
Okay,
What are you
go to
talking
the
about?
equation of
Well,
that.
I don't-
Go to the equation of
I don't
that.
have that one, but you're just lying. You're also
No, I'm not
shifting
lying.
the
I'll show
goalposts,
you the
though.
paper.
Because, by the way, you pretend that there are no papers that show any peptide formation in water. I just showed you a ton. You're shifting the
But
goalposts by complaining
How
about
am
the
I
side
shifting
chains.
the goalpost? These are the ones you've got to do. If you can't do it with these active side chains. You cannot.
But he did.
Powner didn't do it with the active side chains. He used an aminonitrile.
Okay,
There are no amino
no,
acids.
James, you're talking about a completely different paper. Peptide ligation by chemoselective aminonitrile coupling in water.
That's
That
an
is a different-
aminonitrile. It's
That is a
aminonitrile.
different paper.
It's not amino acid coupling.
I know that's a different paper. He takes this is just a different, he's not going through peptide bond formation. It's a different, right? So you have peptides, you have amino acids condensing, that's peptide formation. He's figuring out a different synthetic pathway that doesn't do coupling, but it doesn't matter. There's a million of these, right? Condensation by wet-dry cycling. Chemoselective
Nobody
aminonitrile
has done
coupling.
this. I'm asking you for
Okay.
a specific reaction because half of the amino acids have active side chains. And these guys play this game of not including these ones that have carboxylic acids, not including the ones that have amines.
This is an
You
acylated,
can't do this coupling.
acylated aminonitrile plus unprotected amino acid hydrolyzes the pH7
Right.
form a
Which
dipeptide.
amino acid? Hydroxylated ones, never carboxylated, never the aminated.
All proteinogenic side chains. All
From
proteino-
aminonitriles.
James, I'm telling you, he did this with lysine. Okay, so the side chain thing is not a problem. So forget the fact that you can't handle that. Right, that peptide formation in water happens and has been demonstrated by about a dozen of these papers that I've shown you.
Only
Now
with
you're
an
talking about the side
activator,
chains.
as you said in your second series.
Yeah, chemical
your first
activator.
Series,
Prebiotically plausible chemical
Your first
activator.
series, you never said this. As with an activator, you're not coupling
what?
for the amino acids.
Okay,
Yes, I
we've
am.
reached
You're
the
not
end.
coupling
We've
carbonyl
reached the end of the
sulfide.
5 minutes. It now, yeah. So I just have one quick comment going back to the NMR, and that is when organic chemists run NMRs, they typically don't run them with boric acid present. If you're going to run a C13 NMR of ribose, you want the ribose to be as pure as it can possibly be.
But he was doing chemistry on borate minerals. That's why it was ribose borate.
So now it's your turn to ask.
Sounds good. Yeah, we'll get
Dr.
back to the
Turner.
peptides in a second because that was my second prompt. But let me. Okay. We'll continue looking at research in a moment, but first I can't resist confronting James about some of these lies he's been telling, so let's list a few and get some answers. So first, the textbook thing. Primordial soup model is lightning and then a slithering creature crawls out, and that's what all these college-level textbooks say. Again, no, they don't. He made that up, like a liar. Next, this boutique field of a dozen researchers thing. Of the millions of papers that comprise this field, I went through a handful of the ones I've read and made this list. There are thousands more. Pretty dumb lie, huh? And let's add one more. When I had some scientists on my content to help expose James as a fraud, one of them was a friend of mine, organic chemist Bruce Lipschitz, who explained how James was objectively wrong about peptides being unable to form in water, as I just showed you, which I'll prove with about a dozen papers, or I did, and will continue to do so. This hurt James so badly that he spun a ridiculous lie about how I took an unrelated clip of Bruce and stuck it in my content behind his back. This was so idiotic that I had to get Bruce to make another statement specifying that I requested the clip from him and that I had permission to use it, though James did not have permission to share their email exchange. In his emails with James, Bruce explicitly states that he was responding to the claims James had made. There it is in red. But his viewers can't read, so they just ate up the fabricated story. Now, again, remember, I'm demonstrating conclusively that James is a pathological liar. This is important because James also lies about science that goes over most people's heads. So by proving to you what a liar he is, you are now primed to realize how he is lying about all the complex details of origin of life research as well. This way, you won't just nod your head and assume James must be right. So let's begin. Let's begin with the textbook thing. Why would you tell this dumb lie, James? Why would you tell this lie?
This lie. You think you've been taught things that are, whole thing about molecules in a puddle. Okay, so there is a primordial soup model, and there is no understanding of what's happening in this primordial soup, and you talk to people, and this is exactly what they see. They talk about the primordial soup model in all of these textbooks. That's your question.
This is the primordial soup model. It just means some molecules in water. That's what it means.
Look, you were absolutely clueless on
James.
Polypeptides. You never gave me the coupling for that reaction. I want you to notice, I'm going to narrate. This is my time
James.
now. I want you to notice, he didn't answer the question. I invited him to come up to show me the chemistry, how this is done.
No,
he did not. He did not. And now you want me to say, so now this is the question. The question is, I just told you the primordial soup model is nonsense, and this is in these textbooks, and this is taught over and over again.
Turning into slithering creatures is in textbooks? Show me the textbook. Show me the textbook that says molecules form into slithering creatures.
Because this is exactly the model that the molecules come together. These form higher organisms that come out of the water.
Molecules form higher organisms that come out of the water.
Yes.
Show me the textbook that shows
I don't
that.
have the textbook. I showed you. There they are. There they are. The smelly soup model. There, you have the list right there.
James, I showed you.
That's from my video. You have the list.
This is what the textbooks show. Ribozymes, autocatalysis, all the things that you pretend aren't real.
Go back to my slide. Go back to my slide. There. Go back.
No, this is
No, go one forward. You show the text. All right. Now don't change it. Now, which textbook were you referring? Because I said right there, it says Miniature C, Prebiotic Soup. Those are quotes from each one of those books.
And do they show molecules forming a slithering creature? No, they don't, because that's a lie. And you're not going to run out the clock. How about the dozen people thing? Does that look like a dozen people to you?
What I meant by that, the number of people that are doing the complex organic Sutherland-Pounder type synthesis. This is exactly what Benner told you.
No.
Benner told you
people
that
all
it's
over
a
the world.
very
Benner
small.
Told me. I have hundreds
Benner
of papers.
told you on the video that there's a small number of people that are still doing the Sutherland type of complex synthesis. Most of the area is not doing that anymore.
Origin of Life community is a boutique community. It's a small number of people. It's a dozen people.
It was in reference to the number of people that are doing the complex Sutherland type synthesis.
The Origin of Life community. The Origin of Life community. You're talking about the field in general. How about the Bruce thing? This was pretty dumb, right? He just took one of the guy's videos and stuck it in.
Because when I contacted Bruce, Bruce said to me, I don't even know what you're talking about. I was unaware of this.
Dave asked me to
said
comment
it in
on
the
some
email.
of your
You're not
writings,
showing the whole email.
And specifically about what we are doing. And does this show?
No, why don't you show the page? Why don't you show the page where he said, I had no idea that this is there? Look, I published the whole email.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
you're only
here
showing
he
the one.
says that I asked for the
No, but
video,
then-
and he's talking about you. And then here you go.
No,
and
you
you
don't
go,
want to show the one where
just
he
took
said,
one of the guy's
where he said,
videos
I
and
had
stuck
no
it in."
idea.
I think he should
You're
apologize.
not,
for
not
this.
going to address anything on life.
This was pretty. This was a pretty dumb
Let's
lie.
try
This
to
was
have
a really
a dialogue
malicious lie.
instead of people shouting at each other. So maybe take turns.
I think an apology is in order for this lie, James. Pretty dumb lie. Pretty dumb lie to tell. I think we can all agree that we are establishing the pathological nature of his lying. Well, then you're blind. He just took one of the guy's videos and stuck it in.
Let's go back to the, we have 1 minute and 11 seconds left, 8 seconds.
Well, it doesn't sound like I'm going to get an
1 minute and
apology
11
from
seconds.
James.
Okay, as far as this, he says that I called Jack Sostek a liar.
Yeah.
I did. And Jack Sostek sent me an email. He said, you were pretty hard on me in that talk. And I said, Jack, I'd like to call you to apologize because I was wrong to do that. I said, give me your number. He gave me his number. I called him. We spoke about this. He said to me, Jim, if you would join us in this origin of life research, we would get this thing solved. We had a very
Why'd
good
you
conversation.
say this was a
you
Nature
totally
article?
made that up. Because if you had spoken to Jack Sostek, nobody made me apologize to him. I offered him my apology,
Let me
and
show
he
you the
accepted it.
primary literature, the journal Nature.
And I
Does this look like the
apologized
journal
to
Nature?
him.
And but you continue to call his work utterly, no, what did you call it? Ridiculous, utterly ridiculous.
Yeah,
About these
it is
structures, right?
utterly ridiculous.
Yeah, but
when
it's
when he
not,
says he's going to
because-
have life in his lab in 3 to 5 years in 2014, and now he says, I can't even make the
Yeah,
RNA.
who cares? Who cares? You lied about this. Look, the structures are
Oh,
fine.
no. That slide, you can speak to Jack Sostek. He said to me, Jim, that slide was not well done. That was a copy from another article in Scientific
And yet the
American.
structures are
No,
correct.
Jack agrees with me. That was poorly done. There's no stereochemistry on
So
that sugar. When
it's
there's
an
no
article for laypeople.
stereochemistry,
Okay, I'm going
it's
to
not
call,
ribose.
I'm going to call a
If there's
close
no
to this part of the
stereochemistry, not
session. Let's move on. It's Dr. Tour's
2 minutes to
prerogative.
ask a question. Okay, my
to ask the
second question is,
let's also try to see if we can stick more to the science instead of diagrams.
oh, I
that
would love
show-
to stick
Well,
to
that
the
was
science.
my only prompt for the
All
lies.
right.
It's important to establish that
Polynucleotides.
James is a liar.
Polynucleotides. You have to be able to make RNA. You have to be able to take this molecule and hook it together many, many times to have a dimer of RNA, abbreviating the base this time as B, abbreviating the triphosphate as P3. What you have to be able to do is show me chemistry. I'm asking you specifically for chemistry, not a bunch of nonsense here. Show me the chemistry
Not a
to
bunch
get
of peer-reviewed
this
research.
reaction to go such that you get coupling between the 3' hydroxyl to this 5' site. So you need 3', 5' coupling to the exclusion of 2', 5' coupling to the exclusion of branching. Every article that you cited in your videos, every article that you could ever cite that shows this coupling, shows this scrambling, you get significant amounts of 2,5, significant amount of branching. And that's why this chemistry doesn't work, and that's why your own expert, Jack Sostek, even says that Benner's work, where he talked about this thing, was just hyped up. There was nothing there because he says he went with the hype He did not go with the
2
right
minutes
coupling. Show me the chemistry.
2 minutes is over,
Show me
James.
this chemistry.
Okay, so first of all, this is completely idiotic. Nucleotide polymerization has been demonstrated on Montmorillonite clay for decades.
Yes, yes, with
Hang
30
on.
to 70% 2,5. I asked you for 3,5, which is what you need to have
You
life.
want to do me a favor here? I want you to read the title of that paper there. It's by your buddy, Jack Shostak. He's done some research on this.
Yeah, I know. And Jack Sostek even says he cannot get it. Functional art, except for tolerance for non-inheritable 2,5. How much tolerance? How much? Montmorillonite clay is 30 to 70%.
James, what's the first word in that paper? Functional. So we're talking about RNAs that still have catalytic behavior despite having a mixture of 2,5 and 3'.
His amount of 2,5 to 3,5 is not 30 to 70%. If you have a 0.1%, you're okay because you'll have runs, but not 30 to 70%. Show me the amount. Your guy Deemer never tells us how much is there.
James, look, the
And
research
Benner
shows
never told us how much is there.
functional RNAs. So it doesn't matter how much 2', doesn't matter how much 3'.
Oh, it certainly
He's
does.
allowing them to
And what
polymerize.
about branching?
My God.
It's not there. It's not
Let's
there.
see.
Nobody has ever done this prebiotically. You're going to be looking through your papers a long time. It's never been done. Without an
James,
enzyme, it has never
You are
been done.
completely clueless.
It's
this
over.
has been done.
It's over. You can't make RNA, there's no life. You can't make RNA, there is no life. You haven't made peptides, you haven't made RNA. It's over.
James, nucleotide polymerization has been demonstrated for decades on clay. You are literally pulling this out of your ass. This has been done for decades. You guys, none of you people know this research. None of you people know this research. You're just blindly trusting him.
All right, let's try to have some civility, please.
The adsorption and polymerization of nucleotides on clay minerals has been demonstrated for decades. James is lying, and people who are cheering for him have no clue what he's talking about. You're just blindly believing him. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's look at it on clay. Here is the reference on clay. Here is the reference on clay. Here, on Montmorillonite, what did he get? He got 67% 3,5, which means you have 33% 2,5 of the wrong linkage. 1 out of every 3 is wrong. Here he gets 75 to 80% 2,5. So now you have the vast majority 2,5. That's what you get on clay. It's right there, Montmorillonite clay.
And it doesn't matter. That's what Shostak showed in
1
this
out
paper.
of 3 doesn't matter?
No.
It matters tremendously.
The 3'
No,
to 2'.
no. If you have a fraction of it,
RNAs.
you're okay. 1 out of 3, Jack Sostek would never. How much does he have there? How much does he have? Tell me. You read the paper.
It says functional RNAs.
I haven't seen that paper.
Means
You're
that
bringing
they
in
do
other
things.
papers which we agreed you would not do.
James, you're
and
presenting
now tell
yourself
me
as
how
an
much is there
expert in
because
this
I don't
field.
know. I've not read that paper. You read it. Tell me how much 2,5 does he have?
I don't remember
All
every
right,
single
there
detail
we go.
of the paper.
You don't remember because you don't want to remember. You read the paper. You brought that in. We were not supposed to introduce any papers that had not been in our videos. That you agreed to.
James, here's what would happen, though. If you genuinely cared about this question, what you would do is you would go to Google Scholar and you'd put in some keywords and you'd find this Shostak paper.
You would not
You're
find that.
hiding from it.
That has a trace. On clay, you get 37%. This says 80%. You can't have 1 out of every 3 be a wrong linkage. You would never code for a peptide with that. It's over.
How do you know? It says functional RNAs. You have no
Because it's
idea
a
what
trace,
RNAs do.
because it doesn't work.
Do you understand that
the
RNAs have
alignment is
catalytic
not right.
function? Do you understand that
No,
RNAs have
even if
catalytic
you have
function?
the wrong enantiomer, it doesn't work. Even Donna Blackman has said that in the papers
You
that
have
you
no
cited.
clue what Donna Blackman says. You quote mine her. You have no idea what her research is about. You just pretend to.
Okay, so there we go. I asked him to come up here and
Shostak
show me the
paper on
chemistry,
linkage
just like I would do with a graduate student. I said,
still
show me the
recognition and
chemistry.
catalytic
He
function.
did not.
I mean, you
Done.
can say that.
Done. You can't do this. You can't make
You
a
can
cell.
say
You
that,
can't
you
do
can
that. You
cheer,
can't make a
but
cell.
you're just
It's
lying.
over, buddy. It's over.
Wow. Lies and cheers. Amazing. Lies and cheers.
So
Incredible.
just from a chemical point of view, though, we would need to know what functional RNA meant.
having
function
catalytic
and
properties.
Function, I mean, because RNA has many functions.
It still has recognition and catalytic function. It lowers the melting point of the duplexes by destabilization, so separation can occur under reasonable conditions.
And what was the percentage? You got everything else written down. What was
James,
the
I don't know.
I'm sorry that
I don't have an encyclopedic
Benner's
knowledge
very
of
careful.
hundreds
He
of
would tell
papers.
us. It's in that paper because that's what Benner.
basically calling
Szostak got
Szostak
upset
a
with
fraud.
Benner because he didn't do it.
But
Szostak would put that in the paper.
No, that's another great one. The Benner thing. Yeah, we're going to get to the Benner one.
Okay,
because
it's time to end that part, but I want to just pause. To have functional RNA, it has to do at least three things. It has to serve as messenger RNA, ribosomal RNA, and
messenger RNA. Messenger RNA. You're talking about features of modern cells. We're talking about prebiotic nucleic
but ultimately
acids.
has to do that. So what function is my question? Did he show that it performed? 'Cause it has to at least perform one of the three. Ultimately, it's going to have to perform all three.
Yeah, I mean, it's replication. I'm not sure exactly in the context of the paper, but he's saying that 2' linkages don't matter. As though you people have any fucking clue what any of us are talking about. Oh, I know about RNA. No, you don't. You have no clue what either of us are saying. Deal with it. Answer the question. Anyone who thinks nucleotide polymerization to form RNA has not been demonstrated is clueless. It's been demonstrated by hundreds of researchers and is just
Show us!
canon.
Right here!
I
Here.
just showed you.
Do it! You got hundreds of examples. Show us. You won't come up.
What do you want me to draw on the
You won't do
board,
it.
James? What do you want
You
me
won't
to
do it.
draw on the board?
Clueless.
Okay, well, let's go to the next round.
Yeah, that's why I brought a bunch of research James pretends isn't real, and you're all pretending to understand right now.
Yeah.
Google? What?
Okay.
All right, let's go to the next round. Dave, you're next in terms of asking a question to.
All right. So we've been talking
Dr.
about peptides and nucleic acids, so I'll give a prompt on this too. So let's talk about biomolecules. Amino acids are ubiquitous and even form in space, and Strecker-like synthetic pathways have been known for decades. Amino acids polymerize to yield peptides. Again, James has humiliated himself even tonight, claiming peptides can't form in water, no matter how many references I show him. Here are some of the papers that we've been talking about. He keeps trying to talk about side chains because he hasn't admitted yet that this does happen. Peptide formation with prebiotic chemical activators. There are countless studies generating this. So the objections, like the reactions from side chains, I'm very sorry, but they have been addressed, showing regioselective coupling even for lysine. When he objects to this, he's just lying about what the paper is about. Then don't forget condensation by wet-dry cycling, as well as totally alternate synthetic pathways that don't involve condensation. Next, plenty of studies show prebiotic syntheses of nucleotides, and their adsorption and polymerization on clay has been studied for decades. These catalytic surfaces also protect RNA from degradation. This type of chemistry has been taken out of the lab and shown to work in prebiotic analog conditions, primarily hot springs, where biopolymers form efficiently and become encapsulated in vesicles. James ignores all of this research and just complains about aspects of experimental setup, like running reactions under argon, which is done specifically to avoid contact with the oxygen that wasn't present on the early Earth. Or he pretends prebiotically plausible reagents like DAP are not prebiotically plausible by only showing research from the 1950s instead of current research. He will wonder how nature knew to phosphorylate the 5' hydroxyl to get nucleotides, oblivious to research demonstrating that protection by borate minerals yields precisely that. In general, he ignores decades of research and just spews his script about how we don't know how to get these molecules. But we do, so let's continue talking about this.
Okay, so there were so many there. You know, this is called rapid fire, so that you can't answer anymore.
I'm just showing you
all
all
right,
the research.
So you cited this paper where they used sulfur-4.
Okay.
This is not just water, it has activation. Once you activate, it is not amino acids polymerizing in water. As soon as you activate, it goes from being zwitterionic, to being not zwitterionic. It functionalizes on the carboxylic acid. That proton gets freed up. That proton gets freed up on the amine, and then it can do the attack.
You're describing
No, wait,
of
I'm not done.
amino acid
I'm not done. This
polymerization.
is my section. Let me get done here.
This is us talking together.
Phenylalanine, and serine. That is what he used. Alanine, phenylalanine, he had serine, he had the OH. He never used the ones that have the carboxylic acid, the aspartic acid that I told you. He never used the lysine.
Yeah.
This is the paper. That's why you couldn't get up, because this didn't solve it. I read the paper. It didn't solve it. Look at the list.
You claim
look
that
at the list
peptide
of,
formation
look at
in
the
water
list
was
of the ones that he used.
You claim that
it's not there.
James, you claimed that peptide formation in water was not possible countless
No,
times
it was.
in your content.
No, you said.
You never
said that
oh,
these,
it
no,
happens,
you
but
said
not
it
with
in your
lysine.
second series. You said with suitable activation.
Yeah,
That's
chemical
the key,
activation.
because they're no longer zwitterionic anymore. You said
James,
it was. No, you
amino
said.
acid,
You said
sulfur
peptide formation
trioxide,
in
dipeptide.
water was exergonic. In the very paper when you were showing Lee Cronin's work, where he showed delta G was positive, it was endogonic, you said it's exergonic.
No, I didn't say it was exergonic. What the
You
hell are you
absolutely
talking about?
did. You said it's exergonic.
It's endergonic. I know that it's endergonic.
No,
Look at
you
this
go
slide.
back to your video when you were discussing Lee Cronin's work, you said it's exergonic.
Nature does this with chemical activation. Lowers the activation
and it goes
energy,
back the
and it
other way.
happens. And then the barrier is very large.
All right,
James,
you
you're flailing
asked
here.
me one specific question.
Amino acid,
you showed me a
sulfur
reference.
trioxide, dipeptide. What's wrong with that?
All right,
Explain
I'll
it to
tell you
me.
what's wrong. Don't move your slide. Don't move your slide.
Okay,
I'll tell you what's wrong. You look right there. You look right there at the first one is alanine, phenylalanine, serine, phenylalanine. None of them bear a carboxylic acid side chain. None of them bear an amine side chain. Don't you see how he cherry-picked this thing? So it can only... I'm not moving any goalposts.
Is this prebiotically plausible dipeptide formation?
Not,
Did you give that?
not the dipeptide I showed you.
For these
if you don't even have one, if you don't even have one. Yes, this only gives you the, it doesn't give you the functional ones.
Amino acid, sulfur trioxide, dipeptide.
Only for half of the amino acids.
So what?
What do you mean, so what?
But you're not even conceding that.
You have to have 20 amino acids participating. They load the chemistry. They keep selecting the ones that only work under their conditions. They can't do it with the free carboxylic acid. They can't do it with the free
You pretend that peptide bond formation in water is impossible. I've showed you all of that research.
I didn't say it's impossible if you have activation. You only said that in your second series, and you know it.
No, you've never said.
You know it.
No, you've never said with activation it's possible. You keep saying it's impossible, and you even play the clip of me going, "I have references," and then you just cut it off. And you continue to pretend that the research isn't there.
Of course, I explained this to you. Even with Bruce Lipshitz's was proper activation in his.
Bruce Lipshitz's research was not prebiotically relevant. I never said it was. I was just having a chemist explain how you're wrong because it's useful.
No, but I'm saying the activation part was there. The activation part. You have another specific question.
What does that have to do with sulfur trioxide?
Bring up another picture.
Are you saying sulfur trioxide is not prebiotically relevant?
I only remembered this one. Do you have another question for me?
Huh?
Do you have another question for me?
The question.
Come on, bring it on.
There's no question. I explained a bunch of research about peptides and RNA that you're pretending isn't real. Right? You're just shifting the goalposts about lysine, and I'm showing you another paper.
Mr. Farina! Here!
What do you want me?
Go! You don't do it! You just talk.
Why
Show
would
me
I
the chemistry.
Why would I try to draw
I told you I would
structures?
speak to you as I would speak to any graduate student. And I would tell them to come to the board and write. Come to the board and write.
If I wrote
Show me the
scheme
chemistry.
on the board, would you suddenly accept it? Why are you so obsessed with me using
Because
chalk?
you can't show a chemistry that's going to give you the 3,5 to the exclusion of the 2,5.
You
mentioned
around like crazy.
And I showed you 37%.
This is called the Gish Gallop, everybody. This is called the Gish Gallop. Oh, peptides? You got peptides? Okay, you don't get the lysine residue. Oh, you got the lysine residue? Well, you can't get the 2' linkages. Oh, they got the 2' linkages? They can't get this. This is his tactic. I'm showing a mountain of research that invalidates all of his objections, and he's just denying it. I don't care what any of you guys are saying. None of you have any capacity to read this literature, and you're just blindly believing James. You have no idea what he's talking about.
Let's close this session. I have a couple of comments. One is we'll have the opportunity for the audience to ask questions at the end, so we'd appreciate it if the audience would not ask questions at this point.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Number one. Number two, I want to make sure everybody in the audience understands the term exergonic and endergonic. So that has to do with the free energy change, the standard free energy change in a chemical reaction. If the standard free energy change in a chemical reaction is negative or exergonic, it means the reaction goes in the direction as written. If it's positive, that's endergonic, and it goes in the other direction.
Yep.
So just to clarify that.
And modifying the carboxyl moiety makes the reaction with the amino group work. So that's great.
Okay, and then lastly, the argument that you guys are having, the debate, I should say, that you're having about the nucleosides, I don't hear anything about the stereochemistry.
I've already given him the stereochemistry of all small molecules. I've conceded that.
That's my third prompt, so
I've conceded
we'll get to homochirality. That's going to happen
enough,
in a
but
second.
that is so important, of course.
Yeah, it's very important, but I conceded it so I can just get to these other things. Right. Okay, polysaccharides. I want to take two of these and couple them together just to make a dimer. That's it, just to make a dimer here. Make a disaccharide of glucose. What we've established here is that in this coupling, this is down. This is the alpha configuration at that center. We've also established that this hydroxyl did not participate. This hydroxyl did not participate. This hydroxyl do not participate. In order to do this biologically, not prebiotically, but biologically, you have to use an enzyme that has about 1,000 amino acids in it. So the probability of that forming randomly would be 20 to the 1,000th. I mean, it's just a crazy big number. If something's bigger than 10 to the 50th, you don't have enough time in the universe. Here, you wouldn't have enough time in a billion universes. Is there any chemistry that you can show me that's prebiotically relevant that would do this coupling? And you will say, oh, I argue that only enzymes can do this. You don't have enzymes because you couldn't make them here. You couldn't make them there. No enzymes. You're lost. We already established you don't have enzymes. There's no enzymes yet on the prebiotic earth. You couldn't make them. You're clueless on that.
Okay, time is up.
I showed peptide formation and I showed RNA formation, and this entire talking point is a non-starter.
When you can't do it with half of the amino acids, you didn't make it with the peptides. When you can't control that 2,5 linkage that's 30 to 70% 2,5, you haven't made any functional nucleotide.
Okay,
so you don't have those two.
You're calling Shostak a liar because functional RNA was the first two words in the title of the paper. So you're actively calling Shostak a liar.
You remember what I told you about the title of the paper?
Again.
Remember what I told you about? It's a bunch of hype. That's why I said, Mr. Farina, show us the data. Show us the data. And you said you read the paper and you couldn't find out.
I showed you a bunch of papers.
You couldn't find in there how much 2,5 he has.
You just start shouting and then people clap for you.
He would supply that number.
Okay, James, so check it out. You're completely unhinged and wrong about everything we said about polypeptides and polynucleotides. However, let's take that out of the equation, okay, because you said you're going to give me all the molecules, whatever you said earlier. Will you concede that this is a perfectly viable explanation for biologically relevant polysaccharides?
You only came out with that in your second series. In your first video on me, you said these just keep hooking on the end. Only when I nailed you on it did you come out in your second one and say, I meant it had enzymes. Okay, and it's true, with enzymes you can get it, but you don't yet have enzymes.
You're talking about peptides.
You don't
You're
have
just
enzymes.
lying about what I
That's
said.
why I put polysaccharide number 3 to show that you couldn't make enzymes.
So you're wrong, and we do have enzymes, but if you'll grant me the enzymes anyway in this magical world that you've invented, will you concede that this is a perfectly viable explanation for biologically relevant polysaccharides? Enzymes did it, just like they do today. Can you wrap your head around that, James?
Give me a minute to wrap my head around.
Give you a minute
this,
to know
please.
what enzymes are and what they do.
Just give me.
If enzymes exist, can we get biologically relevant polysaccharides? Yes or no?
Here is the enzyme
the answer is
that
yes.
do this. This is the enzyme that does this. It is 98 kilodaltons. It's 20 to the 842. That's 10 to the 1094 possible scenarios. If you have anything more
is that
than
the enzyme that does this
10
today,
to the 50th,
or is that the enzyme
you don't
that
have
did this
enough
4
time
billion years
in our
ago?
universe. In 14 billion years.
Wow, big numbers,
Yeah,
guys.
big numbers. So this is the type of enzyme that you would have to have.
So this is an enzyme that exists today.
Yes.
And is the product of 4 billion years, or however many billion years of evolution. Not sure when this exactly came about. Is it possible that another enzyme that doesn't have this exact sequence could perform this chemistry? Yeah?
Well, let's take a look at that.
I mean, or you could just answer the question.
Let me tell you something. Let's take a look at that. This is a little molecule, right? This is a little 6-carbon molecule.
Sure.
You know what it took to make this? It takes 11 enzymes, 4 of them unique, and 4 activators, and these 15 steps today to make it. You're telling me on an early Earth there was some enzyme that magically put this molecule together. This takes 14 enzymes.
You're talking about a monosaccharide?
This is
James, remember Benner's research?
Monosaccharide. This is 10 to the 65,000.
James, foremost makes sugars. Foremost reaction makes sugars. What are you talking about? You're talking about
because
ribose?
they've never been able to separate those. They've never been able to use those sugars for anything. Because
what do you mean?
Because they're so contaminated. Name me one person that has name me one person. One person that has made a stereo-controlled reaction to make glucose, and that could ever separate it from the mess that you get.
Why would they have to separate it?
Nobody.
Why would they have to separate it?
You have to separate it.
Why? You have to separate it in the lab because you need to characterize it because you're a chemist.
No, because
nature doesn't need to
take
do that.
it on to the next step. There's so many.
Molecules that are in a mixture can't do chemistry?
What did Lee Cronin tell you? In the foremost
I don't know,
reaction,
he's not my
you
favorite
get
scientist, like you
billions
say.
of compounds. In seconds to hours, you get billions.
And that's why they do all this research on mineral surfaces because it tamed.
The mineral surface
taming the combinatorial.
The mineral surface didn't take care of it. You want to get into what Benner did?
Remember the NMR spectrum? Remember the billions of compounds?
Okay,
and the NMR
you want me
spectrum
to
that you
address
can't read
Benner's
because
problem?
you're a buffoon?
Here's Benner's problem. All right, you want me to address that? We'll address it. All right,
Foremost gives you sugars. I'm sorry, James. I don't know what to tell you here. You're just in denial of reality, and it's unfortunate that you cannot read a 13C NMR spectrum.
Here's Benner's reaction to make his 4 compounds.
Sure.
Here's his reaction, okay? So here he goes through this. What did he do? Here's the experimental procedure. What he did is he silated it. He silated it with this NO-bis trimethylsilyl trifluoroacidamide. He silated it, he ran, and then he filtered it twice. It was filtered twice before it ever got on the GC to filter out many of the things.
Because he's doing characterization, James.
No.
He has to verify
he's telling us he made 4 compounds. Here's the 4 compounds he says he made, okay?
James, do you understand?
But what do you think all these other peaks are? What are all these other peaks that he's even filtered out?
He got 5 different sugars.
Now, let's even just say it was 4. Let's say he just made 4.
This is pathetic.
No.
You're covering for the fact that you can't read a 13C NMR spectrum.
Here he gives his half-life. He gives the half-life of each of these compounds on his borate glass, on his colemanite. Here is the half-life. You know what half-life means? That in a few hours, half of it is decomposed. What did it decompose into, Steve Benner? I asked Steve Benner this very question. You said it has a half-life. What did it decompose into?
And then he never got back to you because he's tired of you slandering him on the internet?
You know what Steve Benner said to me? He said nothing. He answered every other question but that. Then, so I wrote to him. Back in January, I tried to understand from him, how did he get that? Now, let's say he did have just 4 compounds, and he made 200 mers. That would give you 10 to the 120 different RNA molecules. 10 to the 120. Remember, 10 to the 50, 10 to the 90 is the number of elemental particles in the universe.
Okay, we're a little
in the
bit
universe.
These numbers are
This guy made 10 to the 120 different molecules. It's totally useless. Totally useless.
Have you seen this one by Joyce?
We're a little bit over, so we need to go now to the next volley.
So, who asks now? Okay.
Is that me? All right. Let me get to my start. Okay. Okay, let's talk homochirality. Living organisms use L amino acids for proteins and D sugars for nucleic acids.
I've given you all the chirality. I've given it to you.
Yeah, this is my 2 minutes, James. Keep quiet. So first it should be noted that Dave doesn't know chemistry. Farina had to teach James the definition of homochiral. He was using it improperly. But more importantly, James either fumbles or ignores all the research in this area. This all started when I cited a singular paper talking about stochastic crystallizations of amino acids. In his content, James deflected to another paper, complained about EE and yield for a while, and totally ignored the data in the paper, referring to this train wreck as having a field day compared with my ability to actually discuss the paper properly. If James would like, I can get him up to speed on stochastic crystallization tonight. But to give a brief overview, we know that threonine and asparagine crystallize as one enantiomer. Research has shown glutamic and aspartic acid to do the same under metastable conditions, plus co-crystallization of all others in tandem with asparagine at yields and EEs James pretends aren't real. Beyond this, deracemization has been demonstrated via sublimation, so even racemic crystals can become enantiopure. Donna Blackman has done a lot of work in this area, so James decided to quote mine her like crazy in his content, pretending some things she said about parity violation somehow describe homochirality in general. In reality, her review, Spoilt for Choice, from way back in 2007, already summarizes many of the ways homochirality can have come about, which means we don't know precisely how it happened, only because we know of so many feasible options. Then there is research showing how homochirality can have evolved at the polymer level rather than the monomer, but still prior to the emergence of life, and then more research discussing homochirality after the simplest life emerged. Here is a handy chart depicting all the possibilities, so there are lots of places for us to begin this discussion.
Okay, I just want you to understand, what the man has just done, and he keeps doing, is he's reading exactly the script from his YouTube video. He cannot speak chemistry on the fly. He's reading the script from his YouTube video. That's exactly what he's doing. So let me answer this.
Because it's 2 minutes, and I like to pack
Look, I've already given him the chirality. I gave it to him, but he has to come back to this because he's got nothing else.
Yeah, but you keep saying we're clueless about homochirality,
so your article,
Spoiled
for Choice, what you said, your exact words, they're here on the screen. You said, Mr. Farina, you said, spoiled for choice, we know of too many ways that homochirality can have arisen to say for certain which one it was. Her own words, unquote. I got this from his YouTube video. Well, that's not what the title is. Let's read the title with me. Spoiled for Choice, Assessing Phase Behavior Models for the Evolution of Homochirality.
Wow!
He said the title was one thing and it's a totally different thing. Now, he goes on. Let's look at the paper. Let's look at the paper. Now, she says, she's giving here, she says, in this magazine, Chemistry World, which is not a mainline journal, she says they are talking about models, and she's disagreeing with them. He says they are saying it's spoiled for choice. This is not what she's talking about. She's talking about phase behaviors here. So this is the magazine she was quoting from, and then she says, solution solid equilibrium, time is on our side. Dave says time is on our side means that, that time doesn't hurt us in this. That's not what she meant. She's just using this as poetry in the sense that she says the next one, good things come to those who wait.
James, you said show me the data.
I'm showing you the data. What
you remember when you couldn't read this paper?
What she shows in her own paper, she shows two methods, a kinetic method and a thermodynamic method.
You're running out the clock. I don't know what you're talking about. I showed you about crystals.
I'm not done. I'm not done.
You haven't
the
started.
thermodynamic method and the kinetic method. So here she says simply sublime. Are you going to say that that means something? No, she's just using the term. Now look at her references. So here's the reference section. You go to those references.
Do you know what sublime means?
References.
Sublimation.
Of course, sublimation. Yeah. That's exactly what I'm saying. Okay. Sublime. But she's saying simply sublime. It means sublimation. There's nothing deeper here. You're trying to say that there's something deeper to time is on our side. You even said in the video, Jane has to understand that.
Crystals become enantiomer-rich.
Let's look at her papers. Let's look at the papers that she cites. This is a review article. So we go to the exact papers. Here's her exact paper. She's using chloroform. She's using DMSO. How relevant is dimethyl sulfoxide and chloroform in a prebiotic sense?
You're cherry-picking. A lot of people do this in water.
What do you mean I'm cherry-picking? You put it under non-prebiotic conditions, you can get synthetic chemistry to go. This is from Donna Blackman's own paper. This is the paper she cited in the review. The review doesn't give you detail. Then you look up the other.
You're cherry-picking one aspect of the review.
This is her review article. Let's look at another paper.
Remember when I said he combs the experimental section for a tiny detail he thinks invalidates
Here is the paper for sublimation, all right? Here's the paper she cites for sublimation. You look it up. This is a paper by Cooks. What you do is you take your material here, you take your material, and you put it in this...
what does it have to do with the origin of life?
Because we're going to see if it's really prebiotically relevant. You put it in a hot tube that's at 175 degrees, and right next to it, you put a collection system that's at minus 78 degrees. Yeah, on an early Earth, that's really going to be possible. And so you have something 175 degrees, something at minus 78 degrees, and it's sublime. No, wait a minute. I'm not done. So she says it's sublime.
She's referencing a phenomenon that exists and then applying it to origin of life research.
In order for this reaction to work, she says this is her own paper. This is your paper, the one she cited. She says, if the first enantiomeric imbalance was brought to Earth by fractionation of the organic space dust,
which is totally possible,
via sublimation, and then it landed in a pond and magically crystallized under these very stringent chloroform GMSO conditions. You couple these two crazy hard things together, then maybe we could get it.
When the temperature goes down, things crystallize.
That's your paper.
Smokes.
Read the paper. Look at the experimental. Look at the references. It can't be done.
This is complete incredulity.
It's going to be coming from one thing to the other. Can't be done.
Do you understand that we can get enantioenrichment by co-crystallization? You're going all over the place just so that you don't have to talk about the papers I'm showing you. Do you see all 12 of these amino acids are resolving at once? It's stochastic, so it's random every time, and you can get very high EEs. Remember when you pretended these EEs
conceded it all to you, but I'm telling you, these are under amazingly stringent conditions that are very hard.
But they aren't.
But they are. I showed you the setup. I showed you the setup.
You showed me something that Donna referenced as a proof of concept that she then takes into account for origin of life research.
But you have to do that.
Paper.
No. The sublimation.
She's saying this is chemistry that has been demonstrated.
I've given
with
you
some
even
apparatus.
The amino acids I cited in that paper. That paper, you got 1% of the pure material. You got 1%. It's a very difficult thing. But anyway, I've conceded that.
You have made a 10-hour course on abiogenesis.
You keep coming back to
this. You say homochirality. We're clueless about it.
You just said homochirality. Oh, there's the word. There's the word, homochirality. You used it over and over again in your videos until you talked to Donna Blackman. You used it over and over again. You have many references to homochirality referring to small molecules.
You talk about how we're clueless about homochirality all the time. That's why I show this, to show you that we're not.
All right.
Crystallization, sublimation. These are processes by which this happens. Thank you. You can't hide forever, James. Can't hide forever.
Just a quick comment about homochirality and enantiomerically pure. They started as different terms, but chemical technology and, not technology, but chemical nomenclature changes all the time. And there's been a blending now of people using homochirality when they mean enantiomerically pure and vice versa. So
I've never heard anyone say homochiral glucose and have that mean something accurate.
And we used to talk about stereospecific reactions and stereoselective reactions, and those have become blended now. They have very
those also mean different things.
Firm definitions, but they're unfortunately used interchangeably, and that happens with. That's already happened.
That's just an error, though, because they do have very specific definitions.
But organic chemistry is a language, and languages change. Nomenclature changes as well over time. So
yeah, but specificity and selectivity mean different things. So I think we should push back on people.
Stereoselectivity and stereospecificity.
Yeah, or regiospecificity.
Can we get on, because we got to...
Yeah, sure.
All right. Specified information is the next piece. Specified information. We have to have some information for the coding in a cell. Here is Lee Cronin, your favorite counselor on origin of life. Here's what he says. He says, because there's some contingent information embodied outside the genome. He goes through and he says how people have claimed to have made cells. This is where he's explaining what he means by origin of life research is a scam. It is a scam. I say they're clueless. He says scam. Take whichever term you want. This is his favorite guy. He's come around. He's born again now. He says, but coming back to the scam is, if we just make this RNA, we've got this. You know this fluke event? We know how that's simple. Let's make the phosphodiester. Let's make ATP. We've got that part nailed. Let's now make another molecule and another. And how many molecules are going to be enough? And then he describes Craig Venter's work, which I talk about all the time. And he says, Venter says he made life. He says, not quite. He facsimiled a genome from this entity, and he made it in the lab. and then he put it into an existing cell. He said he had to take an existing cell that has a causal chain going back to Luca. Luca is the last universal common ancestor, not the first cell, but the cell from which all other cells on Earth are presumed to have come. He says there was something outside of this. He says you couldn't make a cell from scratch. He says, but even today, all of synthetic biologists cannot make a cell from scratch because there's something contingent information embodied outside the genome of the cell. This isn't Jim Tour, the religious guy, saying this. This is Lee Cronin, the non-religious guy, saying this. He's seeing what I see. This is what I'm saying. Where does the specified information come from, Mr. Farina? Where does it come from? Tell us. Here, take the chalk. Write it for us. Anywhere you want.
Take the chalk.
Write it for us. Tell us.
Don't show me research. Take the chalk. Please, take the chalk. Okay, so Venter is a synthetic biologist. He's not an origin of life researcher. So that is not actually terribly relevant. There's some overlap, but that's not how life began. So when you take extant life and strip things away, that is not directly addressing the origin of life. So you're taking a completely different field. Information is in nucleic acids and peptides.
No, that is like that.
Nucleic acids don't convey information? Are you joking?
There is no information there to give you the prescription you need.
What do you mean, no information?
Because what I'm telling you is it has what is called Shannon information. It's information from randomness, which is not specified.
The sequence of monomers
you need specified information. This man is seeing it. Even Benner.
The sequence
you want to quote
monomers
what Benner
is the
says about
information.
this? I mean, I have that quote too. Benner sees the same thing that I'm seeing. He says it's informationless.
James, I find it hilarious that you continue to pretend that origin of life researchers are pretending that origin of life research is invalid. Don't you think that's a really dumb lie to be telling? You're definitely just pretending. You're taking, he's having a lighthearted podcast conversation, and you're pretending that Lee Cronin is going, origin of life research is stupid. All of my work is stupid. Why would you think anyone would believe that?
Okay, here he is. He wrote it. Here he puts up this tweet. Origin of life research is a scam. Somebody says, why? He says, because no one is really trying to actually answer the question or thinks it can be done.
Okay, so...
There it is, Lee Cronin.
Yeah, an origin of life researcher...
He's sitting in his office tweeting this stuff.
An origin of life researcher is admitting that his entire body of work is meaningless. That is really...
No, he's not saying his entire body of work. He's saying he's come to a realization of this.
If we're being honest, slightly arrogant.
He's come to a realization by looking at the data.
The
material must have come from outside the genome.
Everybody. Yes, Lee Cronin is pretending all of his work and that of all of his colleagues is meaningless.
He's your favorite advisor.
James.
He's your man. Over and over again. You gave him half of an entire video, Lee Cronin.
If I write not clueless, does that win? James, you're bringing up synthetic biology because you refuse to engage with the actual research of systems chemistry, which is my next prompt.
He's the one who said synthetic biologists can't do this.
He's a synthetic biologist. He's not an origin of life researcher.
Today, synthetic biologists cannot make a cell from scratch.
Mimics of current extant life.
Yeah, nobody can do this now. Nobody's good enough. Nobody's good enough today. You ought to do it, Dave. Why don't you make it happen?
What do you mean?
The reason you don't do it, because the reason you think these guys have everything is because you're very shallow in your understanding. You believe this nonsense that they put in the title. It said it in the title, so it has to be. I told you the titles are hyped. They are hyped. Look at the data. I urged you in my opening statement, look at the data.
Thousands of researchers, nothing but hype, and only James is right. That sounds really realistic, huh?
I'm done. I mean, yeah. You want to go on to the next one?
Yes.
I've got one more prompt, and that's it, so let's do that.
Oh, I've got plenty.
Yeah.
I got plenty of barriers you got to get by.
Well,
the last one being assemble a cell for me.
Your prompts are all just clueless because I say so.
So we don't have a lot of time, so it really is going to only be one more volley.
All right. Okay.
All right. So finally, we get to the most important concept that James is desperately ignoring. This is the one that debunks his idiotic straw man, where he wonders why nobody can synthesize a living cell. After all, if abiogenesis was some molecules floating together and boom, life exists, why can't scientists do it? Well, newsflash, nature also didn't do that. What current science suggests is that RNA molecules with catalytic properties called ribozymes came about And some of these became self-replicating. And then systems of RNA and proteins enclosed in vesicles complexified over millions of years until a protocell was formed. Of the mountain of relevant literature, here are just a few that show how ribozymes form cooperative cycles and networks, engage in self-sustained replication, and have been demonstrated to evolve by natural selection. James is allergic to discussing anything that invalidates one of his mantras: selection doesn't happen on the molecular level. This is objectively false, and it is the key phenomenon that led from systems of random biomolecules to the first living organism. In order to hand-wave away this research, James makes completely unsubstantiated claims, like how replicators can only copy 10% of themselves. Nope, fully self-replicating ribozymes were shown as early as 2002, in some cases exhibiting Darwinian evolution, with many other examples by various mechanisms since then. And as early as 2013, ribozymes catalyzed synthesis of RNA longer than itself. Every time James whines about aspects of modern eukaryotic cells that are a product of 4 billion years of evolution, like CISS, interactomes, or anything having to do with DNA whatsoever, he's just desperately avoiding this mountain of science. He's never read any of this literature. He can't even define the word autocatalysis, despite me having taught it to him. And why? Because self-replicating molecules that evolve by natural selection, that sounds just a little too relevant to the origin of life, now doesn't it?
Good reading skills. Yeah, tremendous reading skills. I'm telling you, he's reading from his videos. You don't have to watch his videos. He just read it. The man cannot speak.
I guess the research isn't real because I wrote words. He has people writing this text for him, and he comes in here. I guess research isn't real because Dave wrote words and read them.
So let me answer your question.
You people are idiots.
In your latest video, you said, because I say, well, why don't you just take a dead cell and bring it back to life? Because at least everything is kind of there. And he says, oh, you know, and he says, but it actually has been done. He actually says the words, it has been done.
James, why are you jumping to a completely different topic? We're talking about systems
chemistry. No, because we're talking about cells. We're talking about bringing this back to life. This man stood there and said that they took dead cells and they brought them back to life.
And he's talking about something completely unrelated. Do you wonder why? Because he cannot address this research. Because he's talking about something totally different. He is a gish galloper, like Kent Hovind. Hey, look over here. We don't want to talk about this research.
You have to take that and apply it. You want to apply that, you have to bring... You said that they took dead cells because the pig was dead,
James,
and so the cells must have been dead too.
Is this an
Let me tell you what we do in our laboratory. We will take a rodent that is dead, take its leg, and keep the cells alive for a week. It was never dead. You said after an hour it came back alive. It was never dead, Dave. Totally misinterpreted that article, like all your articles.
But back to what I was talking about, do you agree that this research shows replicators that evolve by natural selection? Because it does.
No.
Do you? No. Oh, okay, so Gerald Joyce is a fraud. You're calling Gerald Joyce a fraud right now? You should be careful right now.
No, because he doesn't copy DNA. How much of the DNA did he copy? You read the paper, I read the...
Fully self-replicating. Fully self-replicating.
No, he did not fully self-replicate it. There's not more than 10. Show me. You got the paper there. No, show it. No.
RNA enzyme, dude, these are completely fully self-replicating.
Without an enzyme, it has never been shown without an enzyme.
Do you know what self-replicating means?
Without an enzyme, it has never replicated more than 10% of itself.
An autocatalyst is a catalyst that makes itself.
Mr. Farina, you have the paper. Show us in the paper.
What do you mean, show you the paper? This is the paper that you're pretending.
Show me how much. Did he say that how much of it was copied?
Self-replicating. Fully self-replicating.
Not fully self-replicating. Not.
No.
It is not. Nobody has ever copied more than 10% without an enzyme. I don't believe that.
It is. Yeah. So let's see. We've got a lot of these. Where are they? Okay, well, I already showed them. Yeah, self-sustained replication of an RNA enzyme. Cross-replicating RNA enzymes undergo self-sustained exponential amplification.
How much was replicated? How much?
James, fully replicated.
It is not fully replicated. No way. There is no way.
What we're seeing right now is James
I asked Jack how much of this is replicated. It is not fully replicated. If it was fully replicated, he would have said fully replicated. It is not.
20-fold amplification.
They take a long bit and they duplicate this much of it.
James, how would it retain catalytic activity?
Even if they could,
Okay.
even if they could duplicate the whole thing, you're
James
still
is
stuck
baselessly
because you couldn't
denying
make
a body of work
polynucleotides.
and pretending that no one will notice.
Where did
and
the
pretending that you and
polynucleotide
hoping you'll
come
just
from?
believe him.
Where
We
did it
have
come from?
fully-
You couldn't make it. And you
Oh.
can't assemble a cell and you can't bring one back
Switch
to life.
to something else, right? Switch to something else. Don't look. Don't look at this research. Don't look at fully self-replicating molecules. I guess if I write clueless a bunch of times, I won the debate, right? Should I write not clueless? James, I've showed you prebiotically plausible routes to all of those
All of
molecules.
these you did not
and
show.
the
I asked
assembly
you
of a
specific
protocell.
chemistry. All you can do is write one word. You showed us
All
no
I can
chemistry
do is
because
write
you
one word.
understand
Every
zero.
time you go
understand
clueless,
none of it.
Clueless, clueless.
Gentlemen,
You cannot address the research because you don't want it to be true, and we all know
I'm
why.
glad you have mind reading. In addition to all your talents, you can mind read now.
I guess Gerald Joyce is a fraud, huh?
Gentlemen.
He didn't do it.
Gentlemen, this part of the debate has come to an end. If there is nothing else we can say, one thing we can say is that it has been a lively debate.
Yeah.
So let's give another round to our debaters for this session. But wait, there is time for questions. So if you have a question, you're going to have to queue up either on that side or that side, whichever side is
right back Right
whichever
there.
side is closest to you. And please, we only have a half an hour. Please limit your question to a single question. Moreover, that single question should take no longer than 30 seconds. We want to get as many questions in as possible. Address your question to either Mr. Farina or Dr. Tor. Each of them will have 1 minute to answer the question. If it's addressed to both of them, it'll be 2 minutes total. If it's addressed to one of them, only 1 minute total. We don't have for dialogue in this part of the debate. We're going to start on this side, and then we're going to go back and forth.
Mr. Farina, you showed the formation of polypeptides. For the record, did the literature that you cited include examples of using unprotected amino acids that are functional with amino or carboxylic groups?
Yeah, I showed you the one by Powner.
I didn't see anything functionalized with amino
There
or
was no
carboxylic
amino acids
groups
there.
that
They
were
were
free.
unprotected. They were
No,
unprotected.
they were aminonitriles.
No, you're
Dr.
talking about a
Turner.
completely different paper, James. You're talking about a different synthetic pathway to get peptides, where he didn't go through amino acid condensation. I'm talking about a completely different paper where he did indeed get coupling and there was no interference from side chains, even lysine.
I didn't see you show that one.
We
The
talked
ones
about
that
it
you
multiple
showed them-
times.
You showed the ones without, you mentioned hydroxyl groups. You didn't show something unprotected with amino or carboxylate groups. So I just wanted for the record to confirm on that.
No, I did. That one.
Specifically to amino or carboxylate. You did mention about hydroxyl, thank you for that. But for the amino and carboxylate groups, which are very reactive and very important because they are in a
Sorry,
lot
guys,
of
I got a lot of slides
amino
here.
acids.
Can we make sure that these papers are
Here you go.
posted on
Okay,
this
sorry.
YouTube
They're all on
video?
his-
The
They're all
most
on his
selective
channel.
peptide ligation that
on this
tolerates
video.
all proteinogenic side chains.
Yeah.
All.
Now my
All
answer to
proteinogenic
that
side chains.
is, thank you, what she said.
Right.
Next
Thank
question.
you for reminding us about the paper I showed that does answer the question.
Next question.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dr. Tor, firstly, can I write my question on the blackboard?
You have 30 seconds for your question according to the
okay.
moderator.
So if it seems like you keep on saying that we don't know X, we don't know X, so what is your current scientific hypothesis as to the origin of life? And if it's not God, how is that, or if it is God, how is that not a God of gaps?
Scientifically, I have no idea. To say you have no idea doesn't mean that you're saying God of the gaps. Imagine a man in the year 1700. You ask him, are we going to have space flight? How on earth could he even know that? There was no flight at all, let alone space flight. Are we going to be able to land a man on the moon? He can't say. I am like a man standing in 1700 and you're saying, can we put people on the moon and bring them back? I have no idea. That is not God of the gaps to say you don't know. Everybody wants to say God of the gaps because they want to say that they're very close. And this is why these guys say that they're going to get it in 2 years, in 3 years, in 5 years. And it keeps not happening. And these guys are getting old and they're retiring. Benner keeps talking about his retirement. They're all going to die of old age before this thing is found. Their students are going to die of old age before we find this because we're very far away. Because each year the cellular target gets further away because we learn more about the complexity of even the simplest of cells.
Next
I
question.
don't know.
So my very, very brief response would be, James doesn't know how life began, so there is a gap in his knowledge, but he believes that God created life because of religious scripture. So that's the God of the gaps. You can cry about it all you want. That's what you believe. Sorry.
Please make sure that when you address your question, to say whether you're addressing it to either Mr. Farina, Dr. Tour, or both.
My question is for both Dr. Tour and Mr. Farina. It's simply put, what is one thing that they admire about each other's scientific career?
Okay, let me start. Let me start. This man has said multiple times that I have called him stupid. I have never called him stupid because I don't think he's stupid. I have said he's clueless on this topic. I have said he cannot read the scientific literature. That doesn't mean stupid. This man has become a musician, and then he went out, and in 2015, he started an educational site, which is huge. The stupid people can't do that. I admire him. This is an educational site, and I have never called him stupid because he's not stupid. He's not stupid. So I admire him for his educational site. And from what I understand, I'm not a musician. From what I understand, what people have said, he's an excellent musician. I admire him for that as well. His wife is here. He's a father. He has 2 children. I admire that a man can have a wife and 2 children and stay married and do these things these days. That is wonderful. That is wonderful. I admire that.
I admire the tenacity with which you stick to a script of lies. It's actually quite impressive. I never said Dave was stupid. I just said his content is a manure dump. I just said everything he says is wrong. I said he's clueless. I said he doesn't know chemistry. Although, again, who's used my content to pass his class? Anybody here? That's what I thought, James. He doesn't know chemistry, yet I'm helping your students. Isn't that interesting?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Would you like to retract any of these statements?
Or
perhaps all of them?
On origin of life? No. Does Farina know chemistry? No.
I don't know chemistry.
You have
I
a
don't
script.
know chemistry.
Anybody can read a script. You saw it tonight. The man could not speak without a script. He has people write it. You could do it. You could do it.
When
you
you
could do it.
have
If they
2
put a piece
minutes
of
to
paper
talk.
in front of you.
You write and you speak.
Okay,
Efficiency.
next question. Next
Efficiency
question.
means I don't know
He
chemistry.
can't speak chemistry.
Next
Every
question.
time I ask him a question, he's going through his, let me see what I can find
James,
here.
if you
the man
can't,
couldn't speak.
if you can't admit that every statement on there is complete bullshit, you are admitting your fraudulence
Gentlemen,
for everyone.
we
No,
want to make sure
I'm not withdrawing any of those.
we want to make sure people have a chance to ask questions. Next question.
Dr. Tour, it seems like most of your critiques rest on so far unjustified assumptions, so I would like to give you the opportunity here to justify at least one of those assumptions. The very first one, your very first question to Dave, seems like you admit that you can form peptide bonds for some of the amino acids in aqueous solutions without protecting groups. You point out specifically lysine and arginine, and I would like to ask, why are you assuming that lysine and arginine and all 20 amino acids were there from the very first, the origin of life? Yeah, could you just justify that assumption for us? Why couldn't you have life from like just some of the amino acids that later on?
30 seconds.
Okay.
So my contest on the amino acid claims was he kept saying amino acids are simple to make in water. That's what he said in his series. But then, when challenged on that, he came out later and he said, when activated. When you activate them, they go from being zwitterionic to being non-zwitterionic. This is what I was getting at. So somebody coached him on this. Tour must be right on activation. Now, to your next question. Could there have been life with half of the amino acids? We have no idea. Even if I gave you half of the amino acids, now what? Now what? Let me tell you, because if you have 100 amino acids, the chances of getting anything with prescribed information is say you have half of them, is 10 to the 100th. Yes, it is. Now, the chances of that folding, a 100 mer, the chances of it folding are what? 10 to the 90. All right.
Okay.
So Leventhal paradox. So one form. But Leventhal paradox. No way. The vast majority do not fold.
Time is up
for that
question. Next question on this side.
So I was just wondering, what's your opinion on Tour just constantly yelling over you, not letting you speak, and just screaming the entire time? Okay, you could not say anything.
Hey, look at everyone doing that right now to the question, right? Yeah, you guys are all
and that's really all I want to say. I just want to know why do you think he's doing it? Why is he just yelling over you the entire time?
Well, the more he yells, the less I can say, and the less I can prove him wrong, right? It's a pretty obvious tactic.
Next question.
All right, my question is for Tor. So I was just wondering, when it comes to self-replicating ribosomes, which we talked about in step number 5, and there was a concept of if it was 100% or 10% or 20%. And so my question for you is, how could we set up an experiment to tell how much of a ribosome actually self-replicates, and so we can measure if it's 10 or 100, for example?
It's all been measured. These experiments have all been done. They will say they will make 7%. It's always less than 10. That's not to say it will always be less than 10.
Bullshit.
I presume that we will come to a time when somebody replicates a ribozyme. So what? Now how did you get this ribozyme? The first ribozyme, you have this 2-5 problem. You can't make the ribozyme. You can't do a duplication until you make one. And so here we have it. We can't make the first one. I'm just asking you for the first one. That's all.
Quick response.
Not done. Clueless.
The first fully self-replicating ribozyme was done in 2002 by Gerald Joyce. This is not new chemistry.
It's not true.
Yeah,
Next question. Next question. This side.
Let me know, I wrote my question out ahead of time so I could be intentional with my words and not waste everybody's time rambling. Dr. Tor, you spoke of making the charitable choice to treat your interlocutor as you would any
start
grad student.
over again.
Sorry.
I missed it.
Say
it more slowly.
Dr. Tor, you spoke of making the charitable choice to treat your interlocutor as you would any grad student. Considering the nature of your disagreement and the form of it, in the broader context of the relationship between students and advisors at academic institutions, what is the nature of this graduate student-advisor relationship? And does this mean that you treat all of your graduate student mentees in the same manner as Mr. Farina?
Boom. I
like that one.
I often confront my graduate students. Often. If you don't like the way I teach, you don't have to work in my group. But I train them very, very well. If they're going to speak nonsense, I will challenge them every time. If they're going to speak nonsense, I challenge them every time. This is education. If it bothers you to be educated, then that's you and your generation. But I'm telling you, this is the way we educate. We challenge people, and we challenge them to do well, and we will maintain those standards. And in my laboratory, in my group meetings, we will maintain those standards.
Would you say any of these things to your graduate students?
Next question.
Thank you both for tonight. My question is for Professor Dave. Since Dr. Tour's worldview was a major part of your argument, I'm curious to ask about your worldview. Coming from a more materialistic view of the world, a naturalistic view, a debate presupposes the ability of people to actually think rationally, and I know someone might be tempted to say right now, well, there was much rational thought in this debate. But setting that aside, what do you actually think people are capable of thinking rationally if ultimately all that exists are cells in our brains that react chemically with no meaningful difference from indigestion?
30 seconds.
And
can people think rationally if the world is materialistic?
How is rational thought possible in a naturalist worldview?
We have brains and the way brains work. I mean, I don't. You're trying to pretend that rationality presupposes divinity or something? Is that what you're doing?
Correct, yes.
So no, I reject that. We exist. We have rational thought. We can observe these things. There's no evidence that a God exists, so we can try to explain it physically. Huh? Yeah, and it's not. So, I mean, I just don't know what to say. We have no evidence that a God exists, yet we can use reason.
Okay,
we've been elucidating.
We're going to have to go to the next question.
Okay.
We're out of time. Next question.
Sorry, I'm kind of. I came from Georgia just to watch this debate.
Wow.
My biggest thing is, do you I'm talking to you? Do you believe in free will?
That's a good question. I actually don't know. I think I do. No, I don't have a very strong.
So when you say you don't know, does that mean there's a God of the gaps there?
No, it just means I don't know. But thanks for jumping in there, James. It definitely feels like I do, but then again, I understand the idea of just responding to stimuli in a mechanical way. I feel like a fly doesn't have free will, or a bacterium certainly doesn't. So I don't know at what point free will would emerge. What I do know is that if there's an omnipotent, omniscient God who knows everything you do before he's even created you, you factually do not have free will. So I know that. Yeah.
Next question.
My question is for Professor Dave. In one of your videos, you stated, how about this approach from Bruce Lepschitz of UC Santa Barbara? He's a synthetic organic chemist just like you, James. He has devised some interesting methods of using to forming peptide bonds in water at room temperature. In response to this, Bruce himself, in an email to Dr. Tour, said, the video, and he's referring to the video you played of him, makes it very clear that he was referring to something done in a hydrophobic, which that means repellent to water, a hydrophobic pocket.
We're over 30 seconds.
And essentially my question to you is, do you admit that it actually did not occur in water, but actually outside of water?
Yeah, and I also in that video said that his methodology is not prebiotically relevant. I was just getting a chemist to dunk on James. It's really funny.
Next question.
If you want a clue, then we need a fact and evidence, right? So if we're talking about the origin of life and how this happens, one of the facts and evidence would be the combination of embryology and the molecular clock and the fossil record and so forth, and demonstrated observed evolution and everything, that we know that there's no vertebrates, no terrestrial vertebrates 300 million years ago. There's no land animals at all 400 million years ago. There's no vertebrates at all 500 million years ago, and so on. Protists at best are maybe 1 billion years ago, and prior to that,
we're at 30 seconds.
First microscopic anything's alive would be 3.8 billion years ago, and so there's nothing multicellular for that whole billion years. Wouldn't that be an indication that it happened, since prior to that there's nothing at all?
We are obviously here. So that we are here tells us that something happened. What we are trying to discern is how that might have happened. I don't contest that we're here. I don't contest that there were cells. I don't know what you're getting at. That we are here already tells us that this can be done. From immaterial, you get material. I think we all believe that. We all concede to that.
Next question.
Hi, my question's for James Tour. So you made a very big deal earlier of the way that there are too many 2,5 linkages in non-enzymatically replicated RNA, but that is, of course, limited to the specific chemical non-enzymatic RNA replication mechanisms that we currently know about. So my question is, does it really seem so extremely unlikely to you that there is some currently unknown non-enzymatic process that yields fewer 2,5 linkages, or that early RNA were still able to form useful structures despite having more 2,5 linkages, or possibly both?
Okay, so certainly there might be chemistry out there that takes oligonucleotides and makes pure 3'5 unbranched RNA. Of course, there might 3' 5' linked RNA. Of course, there might be that. What I am saying that as of today, we don't have it. That's all I'm saying. That's not to say that we won't identify that next year. But even if we have the RNA, it doesn't solve the problem. There's many other things that have to happen. You have to get a code to the RNA. The RNA is unstable. Now, most chemists, you're a chemist, most chemists have never worked with single molecules. I have, because we do something called molecular electronics. When you have a single molecule of something, it doesn't last very long. The half-life of RNA at room temperature, let's say, is 100 days. That's generous. Let's say it's 100 days. If you have a 300-mer and the half-life is 100 days, the half-life of that one molecule is 100 days divided by 300. It's 8 hours. It's 8 hours. When you have, the reason as chemists we can work with these compounds is because we have moles of them.
We're at 1 minute.
Dave doesn't understand this. He thinks because a peptide linkage lasts 7 years, that in a single molecule of a 300-mer, that's never going to break for at least 7 years. That's not what it means. That's not what it means. You have to take the half-life and bring it back to a probability. When you have one molecule of anything, it doesn't last long. If you have a 200-mer of a polypeptide, that lasts 9 days.
It's incredible, the Gish galloping. Take a look at this. Right, there are mineral surfaces that stabilize RNA and prevent degradation. So, also well researched. Just another example of James hiding from all the answers that he doesn't want to be there.
Next question.
No, that is on a surface that is not in water. It's not doing any reaction on that mineral. As soon as it gets in water, boom,
that
8 hours.
protect RNA
8
from
hours.
degradation.
8 hours in water. That's it.
No,
Next
James.
question, please.
No.
Dr. Tour, you've said in podcasts and YouTube videos that you do not claim God as an explanation for the origin of life, and say that one day science may be able to explain all of it.
I said that in my introductory statement as well.
However, many of your following believe that your criticisms of origin of life is evidence for God. Will you denounce this thinking?
Criticism of origin of life is evidence for God? What did you say? What was the last part?
However, many of your following believe that your criticisms of origin of life is evidence for God. Will you denounce this thinking?
They can think whatever they stinking want to think. I'm not telling what people to think. If you think you should control what people want to think. I am telling you that just because we don't have an explanation for how life originated, I can't, as a scientist, say, therefore, God made it magically happen and poofed it into existence. I can't say that as a scientist. That's all I say. I don't tell people what they can believe or not believe. That's up to them.
But
I don't. This isn't. I'm not the Lord here.
Yeah, but that is what you believe, and that's why you lie about science, to protect that belief.
Thank you. Boo. Boo. Sorry.
Next question, please.
That's the case.
Next question, please.
From learning from you two guys and wanting to be here as a neutral, I wanted to be persuaded and convinced. Thank you, Dr. Tour, because not only have you reassured that my path is opening, that there are doors that still need to be open, then from the fallacies, the mountain of fallacies that the gentleman next to you opened today, I wanted to see if there's a possibility for you to look into his cosmological work.
Wait, say that again. I missed
I want you to please look at his cosmological work and analyze it the same way that you do your expertise, so that you can entertain how he bridges all those gaps and how he promotes a construct that is flawed not only in the ways that you're seeing, but in the others.
Please
so
ask your question.
Yeah, the question is just to please, if you give us the opportunity online to see you analyzing his work in cosmology.
What work in cosmology? I'm
sorry, I don't work in cosmology, but I can't learn another area. I'm sorry about that.
Do you like, you found my electric universe debunks and you don't like that or something? What do you, oh, okay. So
Next question,
that's
please.
another debate.
Next question,
yeah,
please.
Yeah, I mean, that's all a bunch of frauds that you're following, but that's fine.
My question is for Dr. Torr. Dr. Torr, given the significance of criticisms that you have on current research in the origin of life field, and given your prolific history of publishing, my question is, why aren't you publishing your critiques in reputable journals? Why are you...
All right.
Why are you denying the scientific community the benefit of your expertise? Why are you limiting your critiques to Discovery Institute publications and YouTube that the researchers you're talking about don't look at?
30 seconds is over.
Okay. First of all, it's very hard for me to publish a critique that is negative because it has to get through peer review. But that's not the main reason. There have been many critiques like this. So Bob Shapiro wrote critiques. Carnes Smith wrote a whole book on his critique of this. Clement Reichert has more recently written his critiques, all of them speaking the same types of things that I am saying. These guys continue on as if it was never written. I am not trying to reach the origin of life researchers. I am trying to reach the masses. And there is something called social medium that is allowing me to reach the masses that never read the primary literature. I'm not trying to convince the origin of life researchers. I am trying to show the masses that there is another way of looking at this data. I am going after the people that do not read the scientific literature. That, to me, is what I want to do. And just so that you know, I'm not a YouTube guy like this guy is. I sit in my office and I work very hard at this.
You make a
I'll
lot
turn on my,
of YouTube
I'll
videos
turn on
for
my
not
camera,
being a YouTube guy, buddy.
and my camera is on, and I forgot to have the sound turned on properly. It takes me hundreds of hours to do a series like that. I could certainly write articles in that amount of time.
The translation
I've
of this
chosen
is,
to
I
use
can't
this
publish
medium.
my critiques because they're full of lies, so I'll lie to the public instead.
We have time for just one more question. Go ahead and ask your question, please.
Yeah. Hi, so my question is for both Dr. Torr and Professor Dave. My question is, I think that this debate has kind of strayed from the original premise of, are we clueless about the origin of life? So if both of you could, using examples from the primary literature, Dr. Torr, I'd appreciate it if you could explain why we are clueless beyond a doubt, that there is no, that we are clueless about the origin of life. And Professor Dave, I would like you to explain why we are 100% not clueless about the origin of life.
Okay, you go first. Go ahead.
So really, James, all you can do is just write the word clueless a bunch of times. So we're not, right? All this research we've been talking about, despite his objections, we do have prebiotically plausible synthetic pathways to all of the important biomolecules and systems chemistry. It's only been going about 20 years, but again, he pretends the research doesn't exist. I would like to point out he made a 10-hour series about abiogenesis and never brought up replicators once. What more proof do you need how clueless he is and how much he is hiding from this research? We certainly would never say we know exactly how life began. That would be ridiculous. But we are far from clueless. We have a mountain of research. For James to train people to say that we've never done anything since Miller-Urey in the 50s is the most insane lie imaginable. It's been 70 years of incredible research, especially in the past 20, what we've been doing with systems chemistry. It's astounding work. Will we ever figure out exactly how life began? Maybe not. Honestly, probably not. But it's only because we have so many ways it could have happened.
Okay, so first of all that astounding work for 70 years. 70 years of Nobel Prizes, both in chemistry and physiology and medicine, which includes biology. That's 70 times 3 with 2 Nobel Prizes. So you've got 210, 420 Nobel Prizes have been given since Miller-Urey was discovered. 0 have been given for
cares?
origin of life. 0.
Who
All this
cares?
wonderful chemistry. 0. 420. 0. None have been given. You don't want me to
Science
say
isn't real if
clueless?
you don't get a
I
Nobel.
won't say clueless. How about I just agree with Cronin? Scam. How's that? Because you can't answer this. You can't answer that. So I say
You are
we're clueless
witnessing
on this.
the
That's why.
unraveling of a lunatic.
Okay.
Okay, well, this concludes the question and answer session, but you're in luck. Both individuals have agreed to stay on. If you want to come up and ask further questions, maybe engage in more debate if you haven't had enough.
You're very welcome. We don't know who's cheering for who, I guess.
So travel safely back. If you want to come up, again, they'll stay for a while and answer any individual questions you may have. Thank you and good night.
Hi. Nice to meet you.
I do.